Good morning. If your natural process is to come in the building on Sundays and come up the stairs, then you may not realize that a lot is going on here at Maryland Heights that you don't see. All of our kids are downstairs. Some have been down there for the entire worship hour. Some have just left to go back to the 2- and 3-year-old classroom. And all of those young people are being taught at their own level, lessons that are appropriate to them and inspiring to them. And all those classes have required volunteers from our own church to step forward and say, I'll spend some time teaching these young people. And that is both a blessing and a challenge. You know, there's always an uncertainty when you are in charge of a passel of young people for an hour. You know, you don't know who's going to come out mentally well, but it is a great service. And so starting in September, we asked for volunteers, and we probably had about 10 to 12 people volunteered to either teach or co-teach or assist just 1 month at a time. Today's the start of that final month of volunteers. And so thankful for those who gave their time for that. And you parents who are with your kids all the time, I know you're already thankful for that, aren't you? That they're able to spend time with them and love on them and share with them. And if you're like our household, the journey home is all about what happened in class. With Anna, it's not so much about quoting the Bible verse. It's about what games they played or what activities they had. But you can tell that she's been engaged, and I know that you probably get the same stories that we get. So take time to thank those who've been teaching your kids and let them know how much you appreciate it. And probably the best way you can thank them is to join them on occasion and teach some of these young people. In the months to come, we look forward to starting our 9:30 classes again. And we will be needing more volunteers to pull that off. So we really appreciate those who have already jumped in to help. And we're thankful for those of you who realize that it only happens because we come together to make it happen. So be thoughtful about that. Today's the last lesson in our Wise Up series. And I've been asking you for some nuggets of wisdom that you have learned. So Noah Wilder shared this. He said, and this is an interesting study he's brought together. 83% of all statistics are made up on the spot. I find that very telling. Yeah, okay. So Zach sent one that his dad shared with him. And I know his dad. I can almost hear this coming out of his mouth when he says, you can keep your mouth shut and let people think you are ignorant, or you can open your mouth and let them know that you are ignorant, okay? There's a lot of versions of that, but I like that one there. And Zach probably has heard that multiple times in his life. I don't know if Zach, are you in here? Have you been able to keep your mouth shut, or have you just... All right. So one of the most addressed topics in the book of Proverbs is wisdom about what we should say or shouldn't say. And Solomon keeps coming back to it over 100 times, really, in the book of Proverbs. Some of them are direct head-on attacks on speech, and some of them are talking about the residual effects of the things that we have said that we wish we hadn't have said. So it wasn't too long ago we did a series of lessons on our talk and what we said, and I got a lot of good feedback about that. But because we are humans, I know that it is important to cycle back around to the same topics we've recently covered, because you probably, in the months that have passed, have had moments where you said, I should not have said that. And because of that, this is a topic that we have to cycle through every so often. So that's why we're discussing it today. It's really on our journey to becoming wise people. is learning to think before we speak and filter out what we need to say and use the most helpful language in saying the things that we say. Understanding the particular flashpoints in the people that we're talking to and what may stir them to take that the wrong way. But today, at the end of the lesson, I've got something special for you. I'm going to give you 8 words that you should always say to yourself before you respond to somebody in a moment that is full of emotion or anger or hurt, all right? 8 words. You can probably remember 8 words, right? 8 words you should always say to yourself before you open your mouth. Jim, get out your crayon. You need to write this down, okay? All right.
You just told me to write these down.
All right, good. Before we get there, though, I want to talk about why in the world does the book of Proverbs, really all of Scripture, spend so much time talking about our speech? Because there are a host of devastating, hurtful, regretful sins out there that people are engaged in. And when we weigh, our speech against that whole bucket full, we sometimes wonder why so much time about speech. Well, one reason is this. Our speech, our words, are usually a window into our soul. We spend a whole lot of time talking about how nonverbal communication really shares what someone is thinking, not always what they're saying. On occasion, we're able to script our comeback in a way, but our nonverbal really betrays us sometimes. So I know with me and Brenda, sometimes we'll be in a conversation. She perks up now that I mentioned this. We'll be in a conversation, and Brenda will say something very supportive and kind, and yet she rolls her eyes when she does that. I don't know where eye rolling came from. I know that I did it as a teen. Is it just instinctive within us or what? I don't know, but it is a universal language, isn't it? And it says, I'm going to say nice things, but I don't believe a word I'm saying, right? But our words can do the same thing. Sometimes we really try to cover them up, but sooner or later, we'll say something, we'll slip up, we won't be on guard, something will come out that betrays us and shares our feelings or our thoughts that we were going to keep really pressed down and private. So, I confessed for Brenda. Oftentimes we get into a discussion, and I realize that the discussion is not going to end up where I want it to end up. And so I want to stop the discussion. But I want to stop it in a way that clearly lets people know that I think I'm still right. And so there is one word that does that. And you probably have said it or heard it. And it is the word, whatever. You don't need to go to the dictionary and look that word up, do you? When your spouse or your child or your parent or your friend tells you, whatever, you know what that means. You know it means we can have this conversation all day long, but you're not going to convince me. So there. Our words sometimes betray our inner feelings. Our words reveal our character whenever we lie about something. Our words reveal our prejudice when we offend someone. Our words reveal our pettiness when we say, whatever. They reveal our anger when we call people names. They reveal betray our love of power whenever we shout others down in an argument. And the writer of Proverbs knew that as well. So he says things like this. This is out of Proverbs 18, verse 4. The words of the mouth are deep waters. Oh, that's true. You know, you can take them just as written, but oftentimes we know either from tone of voice or circumstances, there's a whole lot underneath that's not being said. Those words are deep glimpses into our soul. Jesus compares the words that we use, our speech, as the fruit that's formed deep within the DNA of a fruit tree. I'm not a real expert on fruit trees. You could take me out to any orchard. Without fruit on the tree, I don't think I'd know one from the other. You know, they just look like a tree. There's bark, there's limbs, there's leaves. But that fruit knows, doesn't it? I mean, when the blossom comes on the tree, it knows already what it's going to be because it's pulling from something deep inside the DNA of that tree. It's going to be what it's going to be. I can claim it's something else, but it's always going to be an orange if it's an orange tree. And Jesus says this, what you say flows from what's within your heart. Oftentimes when you say something and you know you misspoke and you say, I didn't mean that. You know, generally you did mean it. What you meant to say is, I didn't mean to say it. I didn't mean to let that out. Because our words sometimes betray the very core of who we are. And that's why so much is spent in Scripture about what we say, because we can take the words that people use and see deeper in their souls than they would like us to see. But the Proverbs also spends a lot of time talking about it because words can leave a lasting impact in the lives of people. You know it's true, and I do, but it's always shocking to me when I realize that people will walk away in their lives with long-term hurt, more often from what people say about them or to them than from what people do to them. Words of anger or abuse can be devastating to people. That's because when people intentionally say hurtful things about others, we know that they're saying what they really believe. And when we hear it from them, it causes us to question ourselves whether that is true about us. Someone says, you're worthless, you're no good, you're lazy. I hear those, and even though I may at first say, you know, you're way off base, there's something within me that just can't let that go. I tend to think about it. And the more often I hear it, the more likely I am to believe it. And in fact, it's also more likely that I will end up using that same language when I refer to other people. Hundreds of scientific studies show that hurtful words raise our anxiety level. They shift our view of ourselves. They change the way we communicate with others. And the writer of Proverbs knew that as well. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18 says this, the words of the reckless pierce like a sword. It's interesting, isn't it? They take something that is not really tangible, words, and they compare it with something that is devastatingly destructive, a sword. In fact, he says this, the tongue has the power of life and death. I don't know that we would think about that too often, that what we say has the power to bring life or to bring death. But the writer of Proverbs says that. So one of the most valuable pieces of information, and it's not new, you know this already, that we know about our words is it is time for us to deal with our feelings and our hurts and our angers. There's time for us to talk to other people about things, but whenever we are feeling that rush of emotion from what someone has said to us, the best thing we can do is just be quiet. It's at that moment when I'm reeling from what someone has said to me or done to me, when my emotions are high, when I feel this fight or flight mentality. I'm best at that moment just to keep my mouth shut and process things before I say something that I'm later going to regret. James says everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. You know, there's probably not any verse more well-known than that one, and there's probably no more difficult verse to really apply in our lives than that one there. Because when someone says something or does something or responds to me where I get agitated and angered and frustrated and fearful, I forget the slow stuff. I just remember the quick stuff, right? Writer of Proverbs says this, chapter 29, verse 11, "Fools vent their anger, but the wise quietly hold it back." Or this from chapter 17, verse 14, "Starting a quarrel is like opening a floodgate, so stop before a dispute breaks out." So, we should, at those moments, pressure cooker moments, we should hold our tongue. Let things subside a bit before we say something. But, we can't live our whole lives like that. You can't go around mute all the time, not saying what's on your heart. Not only is that impossible, it's unhealthy to do that. So, when do we speak? And how can we control the effects of what we say in the lives of others? Well, we've said that words can be a window into our soul. Words can leave a lasting effect. But that's not only true about the negative words that we say, it's also true about the positive things that we say. Our words of kindness can encourage others. These are also windows into our soul, isn't it? When we show appreciation for others, when we strive to understand what other people are going through by listening, whenever we forgive instead of holding a grudge, people are able to see within our soul the Spirit of Christ alive inside of us. And also, upbuilding words have the power to leave a lasting impact on people. Words of encouragement help people see their eternal value. Words of comfort help them deal with personal hurt that they're experiencing. And words of forgiveness help them realize that there's hope for a better future. These words of kindness leave a lasting. You can probably remember from childhood something someone said to you that inspired you to be a better person, to focus on a more noble goal. That person is probably long dead and gone, and if they're not, they've long forgotten what they've said because it didn't resonate with them for a lifetime, but for you, it sat in your heart and it has guided you your whole life. So many of the Proverbs that talk about the destructive nature of words also talk about the blessed nature of positive words that we use. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. It's really true that in our mouth, the words that we say, we hold the power of life or death for people. So here's the choice that we have. We can choose to let our words rain down anger and disdain and judgment on other people. We have the power to accomplish that in the lives of people around us. Or we can choose to be voices of forgiveness and respect and hope. These choices are ours to make. We can choose to speak words that become a fountain of life for others, or we can choose to say words that kill their spirit. Our words have the power to bring death and destruction, but the writer of the Proverbs also says that our words have this power to speak life into other people. So, you ready for the 8 words? It's from a prayer. And the earliest appearance of this prayer was in print around 1915. It was during or just prior to the start of World War I. It was a time in history where every political state in Europe was on edge, worrying about what others were going to do. There was this palpable sense of threat and foreboding among nations. There was wise use of language and also hurtful use of language that seemed to add fuel to the flame that was already appearing there. And although the war began just as a regional dispute, it soon spilled over across all of Europe, and including most of the known world was involved on some way or the other. 20 million people were left dead in the wake of World War I that stretched over 6 years. And in fact, that unresolved anger after the war ended still festered, didn't it, until war broke out again in World War II. It was this whole era when there was this foreboding sense of fear and threat and anger among people. And you saw it in diplomacy, in political rhetoric, and in the angry words that protesters used in the streets. And it was in the midst of this conflict that this prayer appeared in a Catholic publication. It was written by an unknown author, but it was spread rapidly among many people who just had a vision for a different kind of world they wanted to live in. A world that built up others and strove for peace rather than a world that tore down others and strove for conflict. And since then, it's been quoted millions of times by preachers, by homemakers, by crafters, by politicians, by religious leaders. From popes to presidents, everybody has said this prayer along the way. It's been connected with St. Francis of Assisi, but it's not originally his. But it's tied in with him because the same character that motivated Francis also was inspiring the words of this prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is error, truth. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console others, that I may not strive to be understood as much as to understand, to be loved as much as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Born out of destruction, this prayer has been known around the world, and it begins with 8 words that we should always pray before we open our mouth. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Let's say it together. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Think about what would happen if you prayed those 8 words before a conflict in a relationship. When your boss yells at you for not being able to read his or her mind about a project they wanted accomplished, and you feel put upon and misused and not respected, before you say something to him or her or about him or her to somebody else, before that happens, we just pause and we say, you ready? Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. You think that would change what you said? When your children's behavior in Walmart is so atrocious that you just stand embarrassed wondering whose kids these are, and you're just so angry with them for not behaving like normal adults, before you lash out in anger, say something, do something that might be inappropriate or destructive, before you do that, you just pause and you pray to yourself. You ready? Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. When your spouse is in a conversation with you and you're trying to make a good point and your spouse says, whatever, before you lash out and you say something mean-spirited or escalating in that relationship, before you take that offense personally and just make sure that the other person feels the same personal hurt that you've just felt, before you do that, you just pause and you pray these 8 words. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Those 8 words remind us that we have the power to pour out God's blessings in the lives of other people. That we can change the course of our careers, that we can change the course of our friendships, of our marriages. We can change the course of the lives of our children simply by staying quiet long enough to pray these 8 words. Let's say it one more time together. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. I think you've got it. Now the question is, can you remember to say it in those tense, emotion-filled moments? Let us strive this week to participate in this experiment of faith and see how the lives of people around us change when we change what we choose to do with the words that we say. There's a song about this that's not written with these exact words. It's written more as a we language because we're singing it together. But it is a song that some of you may know. We haven't sung it here in some time, so it may be new to many of you. But I am confident that Heath can lead this one and that you guys can sing along as you grow to learn it better. And it may be a great song for you just to keep in your mind as you go throughout the day. Why don't we stand together and sing this song?